Hey, J-Cake here, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year again, the fantasy baseball playoffs. I am super excited to share with you that there are several teams that will be making showings in the fantasy playoffs in their respective leagues. There will also be some that fell a little short, or the new team we took over a few weeks ago far short, but that was not from our doing. Let's make that clear. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump into it. The Fantrax League, Funky Junky Joker Monkeys, were on an 8-game winning streak. To secure the spot, we needed another win. And ladies and gentlemen, we secured that 9th win and we are in the playoffs. We won with a score of 5-12 to 4-12. I'm excited to be going into the playoffs with this 9-game winning streak. We will be playing the 3rd seed, who we split the season series with, so I do feel like it's going to be a really good matchup. Let's go ahead and talk about the people who helped me win this 9th game of the year. I had several players get 30 plus points, 40 plus points, and then we had a guy who went above and beyond and was able to get 60 points alone. So Xander Bogaerts and Tommy Pham both scored at least 36 points. Merrill Kelly, Pablo Lopez, and Ronald Acuna all scored at least 45 points. And Jose Altuve, he got me 60 points. Again, I'm excited to be talking to you about the Funky Junky Joker Monkeys going into the playoffs and their matchups in the playoffs, because at one point in time, remember, this team was 4-9. A few key moves we wanted to make before we got to the playoffs was the pickup of Nolan Jones and Javier Assad. In order to make room for them, we had to drop Nolan Gorman and Thairo Estrada. And next, we're going to move to the Cheese Weasels. With 106 points, we are sitting in 5th place. Out of all the categories, there are some we're doing very well in, and one we're doing very poorly in. The one we're doing poorly in, we are lacking tremendously in batting average. We're sitting dead last. The categories that we're winning in include wins, which we're tied for first, and strikeouts. Some of the categories that we are very close to overtaking the next person in is home runs, stolen bases, and saves. Some of the guys that have helped us cut the deficit or even take the lead in some categories include Spencer Torkelson, Trey Turner, and Yordan Alvarez, all having 2 home runs at least and 5 plus RBIs this week. Yordan Alvarez alone had 9 walks, and Merrill Kelly, Tyler Glasnow, and Kevin Gausman all having at least 12 strikeout games. The adds and drops for this week were pretty short. I added J.P. Crawford and dropped J.P. Crawford. I also added Alex Lang and dropped Will Smith. I'm going to switch it up a little bit and talk about Peach Creek Purgatory of the ESPN leagues. We're currently in a 2-week winners consolation bracket matchup with the only team worse than my team. We're currently doubling their score, and I forgot to even set my lineups for this past weekend because of fantasy football. However, I will talk about the top scorers we have include Justin Steele with 94 points, Matt Olson with 91 points, and Ronald Acuna with 84 points. The adds and drops for this week were very short. I added Jameson Taillon and Zach Thompson and dropped David Robertson and Zach Greinke. And keeping with the ESPN leagues, we're going to talk about Russell My Jim Jams. I came with a huge win last week, although it was against the worst team in the league. But we know how my luck is with the worst teams in the league. So I ended up winning 13 categories to 1 category to 2 categories. The 1 category they won was in whip, and they won it by 0.02 of a point. You win some, you lose one, and that's what you focus on. No bueno. My record currently sits at 136 wins, 159 losses, and 57 ties. Some of the guys that helped me win big this week included Brandon Nimmo with 3 home runs, Jose Altuve with 6 home runs, Bryson Stott and CJ Abrams both with at least 2 stolen bases, and Merrill Kelly having a 12 strikeout game. The adds and drops for this week were pretty short. I added Lourdes Gurriel and Zach Geloff and dropped Taj Bradley and David Robertson. And the last team we're going to talk about for the ESPN leagues is the South Harmon Institute of Technology. As I mentioned last week, I will be in a 2-week winners bracket playoff matchup with the number 2 seed. Up to this point, I do feel good, especially with the pitching matchups. I am leading in most of the categories, so we will keep the pressure on to ensure we don't lose those, but I have made some adjustments, some adds and drops, which I will talk to you about next week. And those will hopefully help us with the deficits we are encountering in the hitting departments. The adds and drops for this week were pretty catcher dominated. Am I reading that right? I added Yan Gomes and Gabriel Moreno and also Griffin Canning and dropped Shea Langoliers, Yan Gomes, and then we get to the pitching. Joel Payamps and Braxton Garrett. And finally, the last team we're going to talk about, the team with the most to win or lose with this last regular season game, the Kent Murphy Dingers. It was very simple. Win or go home. We were playing the team that was in 6th spot. We were in 7th, half a game behind them. We're in the playoffs. We won this week 7-3, and I was able to ride the coattails of none other than Jose Altuve, who had 6 home runs, Matt Olson, who had 4 home runs. Those two also each had 8 RBIs, and I had 2 or more stolen bases from Bryson Stott, Kerry Carpenter, and Esteury Ruiz. I will currently be playing a 1-week matchup with the 3rd seed team. They were pretty tough. They have some pretty good guys on their team who, coincidentally, I have on some of my other teams, so I'm torn. I want my guys to do well on my team, but I don't want them to do well on his team. But they're the same guys. So at this point in time, you're going to come into that type of situation. The teams that are in the playoffs are going to have some of the best guys. And, he has Ronald Acuna. He has Freddie Freeman. Those are 2 guys that are going to make some noise no matter what team they're playing on. And it just happens to be the team I'm playing against and some of the teams that I have in some of my other leagues. So, again, 6th seed, we made it off of a win. And now let's talk about the adds and drops who I was using not only for this week, but to look forward to this first playoff week. I picked up Jose Alvarado, who had a doubleheader against the Braves on Monday. Nolan Jones, who has the next week of games in his home stadium in Colorado. I also picked up Cole Ragans. Yeah, you heard me right. Cole Ragans was somehow available in this league. I don't know how, but he's on my team now. I also grabbed Jordan Wicks, Ian Happ, and Ryan Pepio. And the drops included Johan Oviedo, Joey Meneses, Taj Bradley. Very sadly, I had to cut bait with Luis Rengifo, who had been so good. He was on a tear for the Angels, and without him, they fall into 10.5 plus games out, so that's unfortunate. And finally, Nathan Eovaldi. Now, this was intriguing, not because I thought he was going to turn it around after having the elbow issues, but because he was drafted in the 25th round in my league. So if I were to keep him, use a keeper selection for him, I would have him in the 25th round. That is some immense quality and value for someone who has, at this point in time, performed very well. So we'll see how the offseason goes. If he does have Tommy John surgery, then obviously I won't use that. But if he's able to come back, I might have to grab him back up off the waivers at some point in time. So that does it for week 23 of this series. I am so excited to have been able to talk to you about the playoffs that we were able to get into or that we are currently in. I am looking forward to talking to you more about the fantasy playoffs next week after we make some headway into the matchups, and I am hoping that I come to you with good news. But I want to thank you for joining in. I want to extend good luck and positive vibes to you as you either end your playoffs this week or start your playoffs this week, or maybe you're in the middle of your playoffs. Again, good vibes, positive energy, and hopefully that's coming back to me as well. Again, this is J-Kick, and I want to thank you for sharing part of your day with me.